Welcome to another episode of A Man Understands. I'm here with Peter Lorimer, the Peter Lorimer. He's got many credentials. To start, real estate, Netflix, many things. But I was curious, your motto is pass it on.
Yes.
Tell me more about that origin and what it looks like to you now.
So, it's very interesting. When I was, another thing that I used to do, you make me sound like 100 years old because I've got all these careers, but I was a record producer for a long time.
Okay.
And I learned to pass it on when I was coming up through the ranks. This is when electronic music was getting born. Oops, phone call, let me just turn that off.
Very busy.
All right. And I was working with these guys that were doing samples, right? Like all the hip-hop guys back in the day. And there were two types. These guys would come into the recording studio and they'd have photography cases full of floppy disks. One would say, don't touch my stuff. I don't want you anywhere near it. And then the other guys would say, take what you want, just make sure you put it back in the right order. The guys that let me take the sounds that I wanted went on to become massive producers. And the guys that were super protective over their stuff kind of fizzled out. So I learned the pass it on mantra through that, really.
That's a beautiful lesson and analogy, and kind of like with stark consequences on success almost.
Pretty much. I mean, I think the world's changing now. When I was coming through the ranks, I remember a world where everybody kept their secrets very close to their chest. I work with Jack, one of the organizers here. He works at my company, and the policy that we've had is we share everything. When everyone wins, we all win, and there are no secrets. There's no secret strategies that the top dogs can have and the more junior agents can't. And so I found that really, if you're worried about people taking what you have, you're gonna lose it.
Yeah, for sure. I think what you mentioned, we're in a new age of vulnerability in a sense with social media, and the only way to win is to give.
It's interesting because people say to me, and I mean, not so much anymore because I just do it on a daily basis. They're like, why are you telling everybody how to take business from you? And I'm like, my feeling is there is more than enough for everyone. I have I'm a believer in Mother Universe, which is something that I don't really understand. And it's like, I'm not in charge. What I do every day is I just get up, I work really, really hard. I try and help as many as I can. I try and help my family and my wife. And then the rest, just turns out the way it turns out.
Right. Hey, it's putting out that good energy, that good vibe into the universe. I mean, you can't explain it, but you don't need to.
Here's the thing, I married a Buddhist. I'm not taking all the credit here, right? I married a Buddhist woman 15 years ago, which was the best thing I ever did. She was a Vietnamese war refugee. She came here when she was 5. She has rubbed off on me, and every time something happens, she's like, Peter, everything is exactly the way it's meant to be. So there's just no point stressing about anything. And when it comes to business, I think that the insanity is when we think we can manipulate the result that we want to get. Because number one, that's toxic. Number two, it's not really putting the energy out into the world I want to put out. And number three, that shit comes back and bites you anyway.
Karma. I absolutely believe in that as well over anything else. And also, it helps to, believing that it is the way it is because it's supposed to be in this moment. So you have less stress in your life.
It's so funny. I was at the doctor's yesterday. Nothing wrong.
He's good.
Just a checkup. And he said to me, your blood pressure is that of a 25-year-old man. And I'm like, I never get stressed. I run multiple businesses, right? But I never let it get to me. Because at the end of the day, this is the point I was making with my wife, Cindy. Whether I'm a billionaire or a bus driver, I'm cool with either. So I just turn up, do my share, try and be a good bloke, stay out of expectations, stay out of results, and into action. And it's fared me well.
Yeah, absolutely. Not being outcome dependent. Because then you hold on too tight sometimes to the wrong thing, and then your results disappear.
Yeah, it's to your crowd is entrepreneurs, right?
What's that?
Your crowd is young entrepreneurs.
You know what? It's people who are looking for inspiration and to understand new worlds.
New worlds. To people that might be watching this, I guess I'm at that age where, I've logged several 100,000 hours of business. So one of the things that I get the best, I'll try and spit some nuggets out, which is number one, nothing is that important when you're in the middle of a deal and you're like, you don't understand, this is a life-changing deal. They never are. They just seem like they are at the moment. Giving away, for me, knowledge is never owned, it's borrowed. And it's our duty to pass it on to the next guy so that he or she can use it and then pass it on. So that's where the chain gets real powerful. When we hoard what we know, we end up being like Gollum.
Right, so we become isolated, closed off, and you have nothing because you weren't open to the world. You try to keep the one little nugget of the thing you had at the moment, and that was it.
I think one of the greatest gifts in multiple careers of songwriter, record producer, real estate guy, TV guy, collaboration, I find such a wonderful thing. Like, I'm going to tell you a tale. Tell me if I talk too much.
No, I'd love to hear.
Okay. When I was an up-and-coming songwriter back in the early 90s, when he wasn't born, I worked with this very renowned songwriter called Billy Steinberg, who's still a friend to this day. Billy wrote for Madonna, Like a Virgin, massive song.
Wow.
Massive songs in the 80s and 90s, and still writing today. Probably one of the most renowned lyricists ever. And I was working with this act, and the act was being difficult, and they were saying, well, this guy gets 20% of the song, this guy gets 15% of the song, Pete, you get 30% of the song. And I said, Billy, it's not sitting right with me. Billy gave me the best piece of advice, which was, if you're in a room with 3 people writing a song, you split it 3 ways. When you're forming a business, right? If you're forming a startup company and you're doing it with 2 other people, split everything 3 ways. I've seen more relationships disintegrate at first base by trying to scrape off a few more pennies. Carve everything equally with your partners. It just makes life so much simpler. Now, when it gets really, really big, that gets really hard. But in the beginning, that's what you do.
Right, but I mean, with luck, it comes so big that both of you or all 3 of you are massively successful. The extra 100 million billion won't truly change your life because you already got one of those.
Correct.
And you have the relationship. You have something money can't buy, which is that heart, that connection, and knowing you did the right thing.
Okay, you're gonna get me started on what I really think what being wealthy is.
Please.
I mean, to me, wealth has barely any association to what's in the bank. Right? I have a woman I love, right, who has been by my side, and she's a tough woman, and I'm actually a little kind of scared of her most of the time.
She's watching this right now.
15 years with her, 3 beautiful children, working in a business that I love. For me, money is never the aim, it's the byproduct. Focus, and I know that sounds really simplistic, and if you're working 2 jobs and, but there is a path which is really hard through a lot of long hours of maybe working 3 jobs. I've had every shitty job you can imagine. I've been a cleaner in a restaurant. I've worked security. I'm not the security's a bad thing, but I've had dodgy jobs, and I've had a lot of them. But I always had an aim in my mind, which was, it's almost like an apprenticeship, right? I knew I had to, can I swear on this?
Please.
I knew I had to eat shit on a lot of it, to almost like a rite of passage. And I see that, there's a lot of young, talented businessmen and women who want it now.
Yeah.
You got to look at forming a company is like giving birth to a child. It's like having an apprenticeship to something much bigger. And it could take 2, 3, 4, 5 years of eating shit for you to make a dent. But once you get the wind under your wings, man, you're golden. You're off.
I agree, and having those shit jobs makes you not entitled. When you start to get a semblance of success, it's already so much better than you've experienced. You can say, I can deal with this where it's at and be patient.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm such a huge. I love the fact that the internet has allowed entrepreneurialism to flourish. Because when I was an independent contractor as a record producer, for example, I had to hustle and put ads out in various music trades and all of this stuff. Now, if you've got a voice and you know how to authentically project that through interesting and entertaining content, you can make a dent, right? But it still takes freaking grind and obsession, and just you've got to think about it like a white hot freaking lava, like you are an obsessed monster. And then after 7 years of misery, you might get a check.
Maybe, but is there anything else? Is there any other way to do it really? Because anything else in between is really just kind of a comfort. You'll never get to the charge.
That's a great question. So there's a phrase that I picked up along the way, I can't remember where from, white space, right? How do you find a space that in a market that's very saturated that nobody's doing? That's what I like to do, right? I like to try and find a space. So case in point was this, with real estate in Los Angeles, there are, well, in the United States and Canada, there are 2.5 million real estate agents.
Wow.
2.5 million. And I'm like, what can I do that is different, that will resonate to my client base? And I made the decision, because when I was coming up through the ranks, everybody said, when you start a business, when you become an agent, you're going to try and appeal to a lot of people all the time. For me, that's the kiss of death.
Niche marketing is where it's at.
Niche marketing, this company now, which has 200 people at it.
PLG Estates. And that you bucked the trend, you broke the status quo. You were rock and roll like your clients.
Exactly. I was like my tribe, right? I wanted to cater to my tribe. I didn't really care that much if like doctors or accountants didn't use me. I mean, I love those guys, but the people that I appeal to, I really appeal to. And now the people my company appeals to, who really appeal to. Right. And so what I would say to anybody who's thinking about starting a business is mediocrity is the devil's playground. Never play it safe, especially if you are young. If you're 20 to 30 years old and you blow every single dollar you've got on trying to start a business that fails, guess what? You got another 5 decades. So going for it with a message of self-belief that is vulnerable, authentic, genuine, giving. Never look what you can extract out of the situation, look what you can put in. And if you kind of play by those rules, I think you'll be an incredibly successful.
It's always, how do you deliver value?
How do you deliver value? And business has been, I think, for far too long, how can we extract dollars without giving?
They want to extract first before knowing the value prop, in a sense.
I think so, and I talk about this. I mean, I'm in real estate, so this is another real estate analogy. I talk about this with agents. Sometimes agents, they're worried about taking people around. What if they don't buy a house from me? What if they, end up buying with someone?
They're just shopping me.
Who cares? Right? What are you going to do? Sit at home worried about whoever you're going to take out is going to cheat on you? If you worry about that kind of stuff, when somebody burns me in business, or when someone who is a good business person gets burned, they actually don't get burned. I'm grateful for it, because I'd much rather find out earlier on in a relationship that someone's a snake than not. So they've saved me wasting years of my time.
Got it. So you took the short-term hit with gratitude.
Gratitude, and I don't want to be this, sitting cross-legged all zened out, but gratitude, let's face it, right? We all live in America. not everybody on your crowd, but all of us here live in LA.
We have it good.
We're not going to go hungry tonight. We're all going to have a roof over our head. Even if we lose everything, it will still be better than the best day ever for people in some of these countries like Syria. I'm not waking up in Aleppo.
I know, and you have to be grateful for that, but you have to be aware as well.
And I think, I don't walk around with a pink cloud of gratitude, covering my eyes with everything, but I am someone I am a very grateful dude. And when something goes horribly wrong, as it does, it used to affect me as a younger business person, but now I truly go, well, that's the way that's meant to shake out, and there's a reason for it. I don't know what that reason is, but I'm not going to let it drag me down or even poison my mind for a few hours. I'm just going to move on and focus on the positive.
That's an amazing mindset. What was that inflection point? Were you able to go from a young man being bogged down to, not that you don't care, but you can move past it? What was that movement?
There's a phrase that I live and die by. And for every decision we make, however small or however large, we make our decisions usually based upon faith or fear.
Faith or fear.
And I refuse to make decisions based on fear. I will only make decisions based on faith. I have to exist. Only me, I'm not saying everyone. I have to exist as an optimist. If I am not a chronically pathological optimist, then that's just how I tick. And so if somebody comes up and hits me with a lead pipe in the face, metaphorically, I wonder, wow, shit, they must be having a really bad day that they need to do that. And I don't victimize it. And it allows me to move past kind of the icky stuff and focus on the 30,000 feet.
Again, back to that theme of not holding on, not only to the good things, but to the bad things.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we come into this world with nothing. We leave with nothing. Family is incredibly important to me. I balance my work life with my family life really well. And I have had a lot of clients over the years who've been divorced and their children barely know them, but they have a lot of money.
But it doesn't matter, right?
When I'm on my deathbed, do I want another $1 million, or do
you want people around the deathbed?
Yeah, or do I want to look at everybody who's there knowing that I did everything I could and we're cool and I love you and there's no regrets. No regrets. That's the word I'm looking for.
No, exactly. I'm having a great time talking to you. Do you still have time? I want to keep going. Okay, good. I'm curious, you mentioned you were in the music business, and one of the questions I thought I wanted to ask you, so it's interesting to find out that nugget about you, when you're designing a space for your Netflix show, Stay Here, it can almost feel like, whether you're designing a space or curating an experience for a client, it can feel like writing a song.
It's so funny you say that. It's funny because I never thought those worlds would meet, right? So I came out of the music business, right? I retired. I was always very techie. I saw that there was going to be a tidal wave of MP3s. I'd been in it a long time, and I was like, okay, I want to do property investment. And I hung up my creative hat, and I'm like, great, I'm out, guys. I'm going to be, I'm going to wear a suit. No offense against suits, you look great in a suit.
Thank you.
If you're comfortable in a suit, you're great. See,
I am comfortable, but also like excellence. And I thought this event was excellent, and I wanted to bring that.
You carry off a suit really well. I look
Thank you.
Not good in a suit. Anyway, we've got off topic. So when I joined the real estate industry, I'm like, okay, thanks a lot, creative hat. You're going in the closet, never coming out. And then I found that, again, trying to find that white space, right. I was like, okay, maybe that muscle of creativity can penetrate into this incredibly corporate industry. And so I kind of let that wild horse run, and I found I'm going to give you an example. I remember when I was writing a song, when I got the right, I always wrote from the song title backwards, right? I start with a hook.
Yeah, what's the theme?
What's the hook?
The feeling.
Yeah. So I started with the hook and then built the song around it. And then when I got into property, I was working with developers. The same feeling of knowing I had the hook with the song hit me when I used to stand on a piece of dirt. I'd look at 100 pieces of dirt, I would stand on it, look out, look at the view or look at what was around. I'd have that same feeling of, this is it. I got the hook of the house. I know how to sell it, I know how to market it, I know what the vibe is. And I was like, holy shit, where did you come from?
That is so cool. That same ability as writing a song to see something where there's nothing applied to real estate, which is in desperate need of that. That's amazing.
And it caught me by surprise, almost to the point of I kind of tried to ignore it for a second.
Like, do I have a cape on? What's going on? I don't know.
And then I thought, you know what, screw it. I'm really comfortable in this world, and I just kind of ran with it. Then I thought, let's take it a next step further. I started helping with the design of the materials in the homes, and then the furniture design, and the this and the that. Now on the show, I work with Genevieve Gorda, who's a badass and a very well-known, world-renowned designer. She did all the design on the show, I did all the business. But, you know, our worlds, they can't help but.
They can't help but intersect, because you yourself have to have a design eye if you're looking at something that's a blank canvas to know what's the hook.
I think if you are working in property, especially now, or really not just property, several industries, if you can, you know what it boils down to? It boils down to if you can empathetically read the potential client, you're going to be really good at what you do. Right. So when I walk in these empty spaces or when I walk on this dirt, I imagine the buyers in my mind. I imagine what they would want, how they would feel, and I try and piece it all together. And it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's about EQ, empathy, understanding the person, their needs, what they want. And because I was thinking about you, you're not just a real estate agent. You're like a 5-star luxury concierge meets real estate agent, maybe a little bit of secret agent. And, how did you learn how to treat people like that?
It's really interesting. Wow, we're really digging in today.
I dig. Can you dig it?
So, I remember when I was moving up through the ranks, meeting, people with more...
Moving up through the ranks in the record industry or like contracting?
No, real estate, the real estate industry.
Okay.
And I remember seeing how other people treated and reacted with a certain type of clientele, which was fine, it just never vibed with me. So I remember working with, and I can't say who because I've signed NDAs, but working with some pretty big movie stars.
Sure.
And I was a little kind of like, oh wow, this is like massive.
You were starstruck?
Not starstruck, but I was like afraid to put a foot wrong, right? And then I kind of had this epiphany of, you know what, I'm just going to speak to them like they're my mates. I'm going to speak to them as equals and just see what happens. And when we walked in houses, instead of like, what do you think? I'd be like, you know what, I know you like this place. I don't really like it, and I don't like it because of X, Y, Z. I think the view's okay. I think the materials are so-so. This street is okay. I think we can do better. And they'd be like, but I really like it. And I remember having an argument with this one A-lister. He said, well, I'm going to buy it. I said, well, if you're going to buy it, I'm not going to be writing the offer for you.
I don't want to be on this as a record because why? Was it you don't want to see it not sell for the higher amount years later?
It was a piece of dirt in Bel Air. And he wanted to build a house.
So it was a mansion. Just kidding.
No, there was nothing on it. It was just dirt. And it was probably close to $10 million. And he said, well, I want to build here. I want to build. And I'm like, this is not the right spot. And he said, right, well, I'll just write the offer with someone else. And I'm like, knock yourself out because you are going to get stuck with this. And I said, I'll see you later. Wish you all the best. X. See you later. And I left.
Right.
I split. And then
Because it's about reputation, right?
And I thought I'd never hear from this guy again. 2 hours later, he calls me and he goes, Pete, you were absolutely right. He said, you completely had my back. I didn't see it. I was, throwing a straw. And I really appreciate you watching my back. And after that, I probably sold him another $30 million worth of real estate.
That is dynamite. That is so cool. So, I mean, if I was to dissect that a little bit, one thing you did, not only talking to them one-on-one, like, you even when you mimicked it, your voice intonation, you're like, oh, if you want it, you weren't doing that. It was talking to you straight, telling you no, and it's being honest. Because most people around those types of people you expect are yes people, right? So that's the trend that you bucked.
Yeah. And I think the fact, I've always thought, the way that so the art of sales for me is never to sell. And anyone who I interact with, I have this thing of thinking that they're almost like an extended family member. How would I talk to my Uncle Bob if he was buying a house in California? I wouldn't try and sell him something that I knew didn't work. I'd be like, I know that you want a Spanish house with a pool, but you know what? You got little dogs and little kids, so you shouldn't have a pool. Let's just get you something else. Spanish houses, they can be kind of small and dark. You want it big and light, so let's nix that and get you something else. And I hate this area and I like this area. Are you in? And occasionally they'll turn around and say, you know what, F off. I don't agree with you, get lost. And you give them a warm hug and say, I wish you all the best, God bless.
But going back to what we learned earlier from your knowledge, they saved you time when they said that. So, you have that with gratitude.
We save each other time. Right? We save each other time. There are always going to be schemers. There are always going to be people that are trying to grind and screw every dollar out of every deal. You hate them when you're in that deal, but when that deal ends, you're out. They live their entire life like that. Sure.
Absolutely. We're at a poker charity event, so I'm curious, in your experience, you've developed a lot of calibration of dealing with people like this. What's the tell early on when you're like, this person might be a schemer, they're shopping, something's wrong?
I can spot with it within 10 seconds.
Really?
Within 10 seconds, I can spot if they're going to be shady or straight up. It's kind of hard to say, but I think I grew up in a pretty rough part of England, and I used to have my wits about me, on the street.
Street smarts.
If I was getting jumped or, so you learn how to read a room. And so when I'm dealing with real estate, when I have young agents, or not young, just agents that want to be part of my company, I know before their arse hits the chair if they're going to be a successful agent.
Please tell me more about that.
It's kind of, I don't really know how to describe. I guess just the look in their eye, if they've got that. You can tell by looking in someone's eye immediately if they have a thirst for knowledge, if they're a team player, if they're out for themselves. It's a read, you can read it in a few seconds. And people that are after the money grab, you can spot it. I just steer away from that. I steer towards the people who are, going towards the light, as I say.
Right. Wow, that's really cool that you've developed that skill set. Let's talk about the charity a little bit.
Sure.
So, Jack Stephen, who's one of the main organizers of this, he works for you, but I'm sure you have another type of connection to it.
To this event?
Yes.
So, of course, Jack, I think Jack joined my company shortly after he lost his niece. Maybe it was even right around the same time. Jack he's such a nice guy. There's a guy who's a classic example of autonomous, works with a team, can work alone, not looking to screw everyone, just a pleasure as a business person. And then, of course, the event is named after his niece, which speaks volumes to the type of character he has. And then I'm a dog guy. I have had 4 dogs in America, all of whom which were adopted. And I'm a father
Love
of
your show, man.
Oh, cheers, man.
Very good job.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. And then I'm a father of 3, so the UCLA pediatric department research department. Dude, it's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. I mean, two of the most important facets of life. We love our children, we love our dogs or animals, the things around us that also kind of give back to us, as you were saying, these are the things that matter in life more than the money. On your deathbed, these are the only things that you value towards the end.
Yeah, for me, there is something I value in people. I say something to my guys. You can never do anything wrong. The only thing you can ever do wrong is worry that you're going to do something wrong. So sometimes they'll come out with these outlandish ideas that I'm like, okay, all right, so you want to go naked skydiving to promote the company. That might not necessarily be
Is that the brand image we're looking for here at PLG Estates?
Really. But I applaud them for thinking outside the box. And then with people...
And outside their clothes.
Loyalty for me is everything. If you can have not unconditional loyalty, because there have to be conditions, but loyalty amongst a core group of people that you work with, I find is a quality that is of paramount importance to me. I need to be like people. I have their backs, they have my backs, and it creates a beautiful environment.
That's awesome. That's why we're all here. We're winding down here a bit. I think you have some people to talk to, I'm sure. But I'm curious, what's your favorite real estate term, such as you've said in the past, urban inspired? What's another good one?
Oh, you mean the ones where we're trying to make things look?
It's sometimes homes and properties don't have the it factor right off the bat.
So if a house is an old crappy house, and we're trying not to use those words, maybe we would say traditional rustic home.
I knew rustic was going to be in it. I knew rustic was going to be part of it.
And then if our home is from, say, the 80s, the 80s wasn't really one of our greatest decades for design, but because it's so long ago, we can use phrases such as classic design of the period reimagined, which is an 80s paint job.
That is amazing. Classic design reimagined. Those are song lyrics that you're using.
They kind of are.
You're writing again. That's so cool.
Trying. But we must be honest. We can't mislead.
Of course. That's amazing. My last question: will Peter Lorimer be on the big screen as the next James Bond?
If they want a slightly older, overweight James Bond, sure, why not?
Point is, you're available.
I'm available, but I won't hold my breath. License to thrill.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time, man. It was awesome.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.